2 weeks ago, I made a video about Synnibear, and whoa, that video has 100k plus views? Guess I gotta make a second. Just kidding. But considering she made a response and so much more has happened since then, it does feel like I owe it to you all to look over this defense and provide what I know. For those who don't know, Synnibear03 was a popular artist and drama commentator with over 500,000 subscribers on the platform all about broadcasting yourself. Well, she definitely broadcast a little too much, as after it came out that she'd been sharing graphic artwork with a 14-year-old up until she reached the young age of 21, she made a response titled, "I'm so sorry," where she stated in no uncertain terms that she believed she'd this person. Turns out that this actually caused some difficulty for her when she deleted her apology and tried to, the situation, retracting any admission of guilt in a response video. This wasn't received well. If you remember the last video, where I also didn't look at the camera, I had a lot of comments mentioning that, and yes, I know it's weird, but I promise you, my front-on angle does not look as good as my side-on angle. It's better for both of us this way. I said, whether that video comes to fruition or not likely won't change much though. What Synni is fighting against is no longer the words of other people, but their own admission of guilt, which will be much harder to discredit. And that is fact. Following her apology video and prior to her retraction, Birdie, also known as Jack, who lived with Synni at the time, would make a video sharing his own experiences with her and interviewing the victim, establishing that they did not condone this behavior and was looking for financial support from their audience to help them with moving out of this likely dangerous environment. Anywho, that's the TLDR. I would recommend watching my previous video in full for all the context, nuance, and other issues that I didn't have time to bring up here, alongside subscribing to the channel if coverage like this interests you. But that should cover all the bases so that I can look at this response video and point out how it's probably made all of this worse for her in the long run, than owning up to what she did and making an effort to improve offline, if she's able to avoid jail time. Voiceover HarleyTBS here, just to note that the plan for this video was to release it with a second section dedicated to a former collaborator of the channel, Just a Robot. But for the purpose of keeping the focus on what Synni had to say within this response, I've decided to split this up into 2 videos, so expect that next.
Nothing in the past week has made sense. I was completely convinced that I was a predator and a groomer and that I needed intervention. I'm realizing that I might not even have a clear understanding of what grooming is. I believed I grew a child because Jack told me I did, and I believed him because I trusted him. But Jack doesn't know what he's talking about. I made my confession under duress. I fully believed I was a groomer because Jack told me I was one, but I don't believe that anymore. I am not a groomer. I did not groom NO. It honestly feels like everyone has their own definition of what grooming is, which is so dangerous. But smart people define child grooming as the act of deliberately establishing a relationship with a child to prepare them for abuse. As an action in and of itself, grooming does not have criminal penalties, but facilitation of a criminal sexual act is considered a crime. Many of you likely saw my video where I stated I groomed a minor, and I saw quite a few people point out that it's very strange. The main reason I saw was, people don't usually confess to things like this, they try to fight back against these things. But none of you questioned if what I was saying actually made sense. I was coaxed and guilted into a false confession by someone I loved and took care of. Someone I worked my ass off to provide a moderately comfortable lifestyle, not only for them, but for the 2 cats they begged me to adopt. One of which he stole from my apartment. My conversations with NO, while inappropriate and irresponsible, trust me, you will never catch me trying to act like this was an okay thing to do. I wasn't flirting with NO. My messages have been misinterpreted in the most bad faith and malicious manner possible. Now that I'm having to sit alone with my thoughts for the first time in a really long time, I've been able to reflect on everything. And I've realized that I was very misled by Birdie on many things regarding psychology and psychology-related subjects. I looked to Birdie for any and all information on these subjects because it was their, quote, special interest, and I figured he'd at least know more than the average dumbass. But I've started to realize that the answers he gave me on mental health subjects depended almost entirely on what was most convenient for Birdie. Here are some actual qualifiers for what constitutes as is listed by a simple Google search. Isolation of the child. Building the child's trust. Inappropriate communication, which includes asking for secrets to be kept, and using sexual language that the child may not understand, and educating the child on the subject. Buying gifts, giving the child special attention, singling out the child to make them feel more mature, special, or different from other children, showing particular interest in the child, victim selection, and substance misuse. I did not isolate Enno. Enno was actually already isolated when they first met me. Enno has told me directly that they only ever speak to like 3 people, that being Sophia the Neko, me, and another person I don't know. I never got jealous if they hung out with other people instead of me. I never told them who they could and could not hang out with. I didn't want to control who they were hanging out with. I wouldn't get upset if they didn't talk to me. The only thing I can think of that probably looked like I did is if I said something in their DMs and they took forever to respond, I would get anxious and think that I upset them somehow. I do that to everyone though. I'm just really anxious. I don't like the idea of bothering people. Building the child's trust. I don't think I was ever even interested in building their trust. The only thing I was ever really concerned about was making them upset or uncomfortable. In fact, it already kind of seemed like they just automatically trusted me with a lot. I didn't really have to do anything on that front. Even then, it was just never on the forefront of my mind. Inappropriate communication. The examples given are asking for secrets to be kept, using sexual language the child may not understand, and educating the child on the subject. I will not deny that my conversations were inappropriate and I shouldn't have been having them, to begin with. The only instance of me asking them to keep something a secret would be me saying to them, please don't tell the public I'm depraved. The secret's kinda just out now, I don't care anymore. I never intended to keep our relationship a secret. That was never even something I was intending to hide. It was also never my intention to educate Enno on any particular, I don't know. Now that I think about it, majority of the inappropriate conversations we had revolved around sadomasochism and, sadistic fantasies, not really sex. Sex was definitely brought up, but it was never my intention to educate Enno about it. Buying gifts or giving gifts. Didn't do that. Enno actually made, a ton of gifts for me, but I don't think I've ever made anything in return, which, saying out loud, makes me feel kind of shitty. But no, I never made any gifts for Enno. Now, I did ask them to make things for me a lot. The most inappropriate thing I think I've asked was for, a comic. I'm not gonna pretend I'm justified for doing that. No, I think it was inappropriate. Weird and cringy. But everything else I can think of was mostly just ship art. Giving the child special attention. Examples given are singling out the child to make them feel more mature, special, or different from other children. The fact that I was talking to Enno at all could be seen as me giving them special attention. But not once did I ever tell them that I thought they were more mature, special, or different. The only example I can think of is toward the beginning of our conversations when I told them they were funny. But I wasn't trying to make them feel like they were different from other kids. Showing particular interest in the child. I wasn't particularly interested in Enno. In fact, I had 2 other friends who I was talking to like this, and they knew that. Cough, Kenny, cough, brother, ass. Victim selection. I did not select them. In fact, they talked to me first. Substance misuse. Didn't do that.
This section is largely a helpful demonstration from her to show just how poorly put together this whole video is. For some reason, she's under the impression that you need to check every box on this specific definition of for you to have done so, as if it's the fair use law. And she would appear to believe that her reaching out to a 14-year-old fan, sending them essay comics that she'd created, and then asking this child to draw NSFW for her was not A, her taking advantage of a power dynamic, or B, her communicating inappropriately with a child. Let's not mince words here. Even if we decided that she wouldn't meet the definition of she should never be allowed a platform. You sent porn to a kid, you asked a kid for porn, and you exploited the fact that they were a fan of you to do so. You took advantage of your platform to get porn from a child. There is no grey area here. There is no scenario which this is a mistake you can come back from. But to prove a point, I'm going to do the silly commentary thing here where I read a definition of a word. It's defined by the Metropolitan Police to be when a person builds a relationship with a child, young person, or adult who's at risk so that they can abuse them and manipulate them into doing things. You found a vulnerable child and fan who you admit was already isolated at the point you met them, exposed them to sexual content, which I feel would meet the bar for abusing them, and manipulated them into creating pornography for you. In my opinion, that would meet the Met Police's definition.
Now there's some other things that we really need to discuss when we're talking about this whole situation. So firstly, I am a hetero woman. I am attracted to men, as you can see from these cringy-ass conversations that I had with Enno. I did not want to date Enno. I never considered that as an option. I did not reach out to Enno, and it took Enno 3 months of persistently pestering, prying, and giving me gifts before I finally gave in and spoke to them. From the start, I remained very reserved and kept Enno beyond arm's length. I wasn't super interested in talking to them until they sent me an image of me laying in bed, and I made a joke about it being inaccurate because Boy wasn't there. Once Enno started indulging in my very strong autistic infatuation with Boy, that's when I started talking a lot more. And as we kept talking, I felt a lot more comfortable sharing certain things about the character that I liked, including personal fantasies. In hindsight, I really should have filtered myself when talking to this person. Definitely should have practiced some restraint. I'm not proud of this, but it was never my intention to desensitize them or harm Enno. That was never on my mind. I imagine that's fairly obvious if the DMs are actually read with more than one brain cell activated. I've been speaking to some individuals who are very critical of me, but they've been fair. They disagreed with the idea that this was because one of them, who goes by Kumo, thought something was off about the evidence that was used to back up the claim. Kumo has been very critical of child predators and people who enact performative vigilante justice online for validation or personal gain. It was explained to me that my understanding of was clearly warped, and these conversations just sounded like, I'm quoting Kumo, locker room girl talk. I myself have never been very social. I would even call myself socially inept. I'm a bit of a so I never considered that there was an existing dynamic that sounded similar to my conversations. This was two girls talking about Jeremiah down the block and how hot he is. Once again, I feel the need to make this painfully clear that I am not excusing how I talked to Enno. It was inappropriate, it was irresponsible, it was negligent, and I shouldn't have done it. I regret it a lot. I should have made the responsible choice and stopped these conversations before they even happened. But I know for a fact that this was not happening. None of the previous qualifiers can be found in my DMs with Enno, because I did not Enno. My therapist doesn't even think I Enno. And the obvious rebuttal to that could be, well, we don't know what Synni was saying to the therapist. What reason do I even have to lie at this point? I came into their office specifically saying I believed I a child, and then after telling them all the details, they don't think that what I did was actually great.
She's a hetero woman? Wow, that changes everything. Put the cameras away, TMZ. We've got the wrong guy. If I could pretend to be a lawyer for a second, because that sounds so much cooler than being a YouTuber, I feel the correct objection here would be relevance. Does the fact you claim to have no interest in women erase the fact you sent to a child? Or the you received from them? Is there an exception written in the definition that says you have to be attracted to the person? Or scratch that. Is there an exception that says you had to have intended to the person in the first place? At the end of the day, this defense is not convincing anybody, and no therapist's opinion on your actions will change that. As you said yourself, your conversations with this child were inappropriate, irresponsible, negligent, and you shouldn't have done it. That's all that has to be said. That's enough for me to feel uncomfortable about your continued presence online and platform to repeat this behavior in the future. You fucked up. What you should be doing is what you did at first, apologizing, not doubling down. You should have made the responsible choice and stopped these conversations before they happened. You didn't. There's no other way to point the blame here.
Jack has decided to ride the wave of this controversy to accuse me of sexual assault. But I think anyone listening to what Jack said should be able to recognize that what actually happened is he retracted his consent long after what happened. Which is not only disheartening, but I believe constitutes slander. As someone who has been sexually abused in the past, as a child, the fact that he's so comfortable weaponizing our consensual touching not only makes me unholy levels of pissed off, but also makes me feel extremely heartbroken. Jack is someone I trusted and cared for and loved unconditionally for nearly a year, and he's willing to lie and deceive with clear intentions of ruining my life. I have been labeled a child predator. I've been framed as a sexual deviant, described and implied to be a violent degenerate, and an aggressive
As I said in the last video, I can't comment on events I wasn't present for and evidence does not exist for. But I can emphasize that Jack did not lie about these events as is implied here. Both parties have admitted that there was touching, and Jack volunteered clearly in his video that he consented to much of this touching. Whether his accusations towards her quantify sexual assault or not is a valid question to ask, and one she has a right to address and respond to, but to claim he lied and deceived within this video is untrue. I do feel like there is valid criticism towards Jack for including a claim of sexual assault in a video where he himself admits that he's not sure if that's what happened. Sexual assault is a serious claim, and one that has to be approached with care and caution, but, and I want to make this as clear as possible, Synni's response here still misses the mark.
Jack and I had lived together for about 9 months, and in that time we established a friendship with boundaries still being discovered. I deliberately asked Jack if the things I was doing were okay, and Jack said they were. I was not under the impression that Jack was not comfortable or even unhappy with these silly acts of poking and squishing. Had Jack communicated to me as such, I would have stopped and apologized profusely. Given the nature of our friendship and the level of intimacy we shared, I half-jokingly asked Jack to my face while clothed, to which he politely declined, and I respected their answer. This was out of morbid curiosity, and honestly, that was gay as fuck. I'm just a girl. Het guys have similar humors and dynamics to my understanding. I've seen what the homies get up to, and it's all in good fun to call them gay and tease about it, but being curious isn't indicative of someone's orientation and preference. TLDR, Jack has grossly misinterpreted our relationship in a manner that really hurts, dude.
I think this part of her statement is important, and one of the parts of this video that I can criticize the least. Our recalling of these events is relevant, as this is a he said, she said situation. I'm going to avoid theorizing on this part of the situation. Feel free to curate your own informed judgment.
Jack's GoFundMe is a scam and it's slanderous. Jack's selling point on the GoFundMe that raised over $10,000 in like 3 days was that he didn't feel safe living with me anymore. As if I'm some sort of evil, deranged, violent that was gonna grab Jack next for saying awful shit about me in the next room. Ironic, considering I was a sobbing mess on the couch, laying in the fetal position, breaking down over the awful shit that he said to me. Jack was not financially independent, but neither am I. I occasionally had to rely on Jack's social security to make ends meet and maintain our lifestyle and security. Jack made a little under $1,000 each month from his benefits. Jack was unemployed and hardly attempted to make any income through commissions. For the 9 months we stayed together, I would say that half of that time I was paying rent in full. We moved in November and Jack hadn't considered splitting rent until February. I had to beg Jack to pay only 1/3 of rent with their social security, and he tried to refuse. That would be a total of a little under $300 a month out of the money that was meant to go toward things like rent. I don't think Jack even understands what that money was granted to him for. For the final 2 to 3 months that Jack was staying here, Jack was no longer receiving social security due to him not attending a court hearing. Meaning Jack stayed in my apartment rent-free in the time that he had the audacity to pull this shit. I paid for the food. Jack being autistic requires some pricey and specialty items to be constantly in stock. So this was more than just feeding 2 people and 2 cats. Jack's only bill, aside from the third of rent, was the internet, which checked out to be $45 a month. Jack's social security is what secured this apartment. Jack has asked their viewers, in light of grooming allegations of a 14-year-old, for their money to enable them to ditch their living situation and leave me to handle all the loss. Stealing one of the pets that I own and pay the medical bills for, that I fed and took care of. To make matters worse, Jack has tried to ruin my life in many different avenues. Jack has isolated me from my only real-life friends, and socially engineered my coworkers against me. Jack has made a public spectacle about this, and ruined my reputation, to the point that my family heard about it. My brother heard about this situation at school. Jack has gone on Twitter and wished me more than death. I will go more in depth on that later. But he's publicly celebrating my downfall and interacting with people who make art depicting violent and cruel acts on me. And he and everyone else feels justified doing this because pedos are bad. Speaking of, the fact that he feels so comfortable calling me a pedophile when he knows what I've been through and he knows how I respond to those topics is driving me up a wall. He should know damn well that I'm not a pedo.
Her response moving from, I didn't a minor, to, he didn't pay rent, is actually hilarious. I can appreciate that it would suck being what is effectively a parent to your friend or housemate, but we aren't here to mitigate your domestic drama, and frankly, I do not give a shit. Fundamentally here, I feel like she's missing the point of why Jack would want to be out of this environment and why this GoFundMe wouldn't be a scam. She admitted to an immoral act with a any normal person would feel uncomfortable in that environment and would want to be out of it. And if Jack wasn't in a position to make that happen himself, I can understand turning to his audience for support. This isn't a scam. It's desperation because you don't want to live with someone who would hurt or take advantage of a child.
A group of people that are part of a wider issue, where you can say or do the most heinous acts to someone, so long as you call them a bad person beforehand. Whether they are or not seems to be debated after the fact. My confession was false, and the people who reacted thought twice and clearly wanted it to be true. They remarked that something didn't seem right, but didn't bother to question the legitimacy of the allegations and the confession. If I pulled the DM logs of Turkey Tom when he was 18 to 19, I have to wonder what I could find. If I did the same to Deadwing Dork, Chud Logic, Soph the Neko, I have to wonder. If we dug through every interaction you've ever had online, would there suddenly be more incentive to be nuanced and open-minded? Because those aren't even the things I asked for. I'm being represented in terribly bad faith, and I'd be surprised if anyone listed really believes they've never said or done anything that could be used against them in this manner.
I can partially understand the point she's trying to make here. I value self-reflection and acknowledge that most people, including myself, have mistakes in their past. That's part of being human, and I don't believe that people on the internet are black and white villains. However, as far as I'm concerned, it is not normal to send and receive to and from a child. And that is not something I've ever done or would even consider doing. You are the minority in that. And making an excuse like this here as a 20-plus-year-old will only make you look worse. Your initial apology was much better than this. At least you took some fucking accountability. I would have been optimistic that you could continue to heal offline in the future, but if you continue to double down, I think anybody would find it hard to build confidence that you're capable of introspection and improvement, and they will treat you as such.
As long as we're all still here, I would like to talk about Jack's video that he made about me. He's the one who brought the situation to the public. He made a lot of points in his video, and I have a lot to say about them. I'm gonna be going more in depth on the things that Jack complained about in his video. I'd like to just get started. Jack's behavior throughout this situation has been really strange, and I have to question what his motivation was, both in this situation and honestly in our friendship. I'm not sure why he felt like he needed $10,000 from a GoFundMe just to get away from me. That's a ton of money. Maybe it's for a fresh start, but it feels a bit exploitative. It feels strange to make a video educating people about someone you believe to be a and then ask for a ton of money that isn't even meant to help the victim.
I thought this section was going to have some more new points, but it's just her complaining about the GoFundMe again. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like questioning the motives of Jack is out of place in a response from the accused person. Surely these are arguments for practically anybody else but her to make. So far, this video has felt more like bitter resentment towards Jack than a response to what she did wrong, as if she believes that by discrediting Jack it would make her look better. And I suppose I could interpret that as her intent, something like martyrdom, but she's missing the mark here. And the outcome is just her looking even worse. And if she does think that this would make her look better, then this is even more embarrassing than I could have imagined. Now, I hate doing this. Ironic, I know, considering how often I have. But this is the two-quote fallacy in action. Side note, I have had so much mileage out of knowing what the two-quote fallacy is across the past years of commentary. I've started seeing it literally everywhere.
I've also seen plenty of people questioning the use of the panty and stocking designs on his GoFundMe page. I actually asked him that too, because he showed me the page when he made it. I asked why he was using a picture of the two of us, and his explanation was that he just threw it all together. I didn't push any further. I saw a lot of people also pointing out that it was weird to include the panty and stocking animation. I kind of agree. It's strange that in the video where you're warning everyone about Synnibear03, the freak.
I'm not a freak, unlike Synni.
You include an animation of me dancing on a stripper pole and taking off my
The latter here is a reference to the criticism I made towards Jack in my last video, including the animation of yourself and the person you're accusing of predatory behavior in the video you're accusing them of predatory behavior is wholly irresponsible. But Jack responded to this point when I reached out to him. Quote, I had a feeling that it might have come across as tonally insensitive after reading the comments, but I couldn't tell from the get-go because I'm awfully deaf to social cues. With the time crunch, I didn't have time to process anything, so I couldn't think of a better way to display the animation publicly, but I agreed that that's a valid criticism. So congrats, Synni. This is your first argument that I actually agree with. 17 minutes into the video, and after Jack has already addressed and acknowledged the problem here.
Jack claims I assaulted him, which is just not true. In his video, he shows a screenshot of me losing my mind over the fact that he was saying I assaulted him. This, plus the fact that Jack admits to consenting to me touching him, should have tipped y'all off that he was talking out of his ass.
Touching back on, Synni's, assault towards me, I'd like to preface this by saying this is gonna get kinda graphic, so I'm sorry. On a daily basis, she, makes comments about my ass, how big and squishy it is, and how she wants a boyfriend with an ass like mine, and she would constantly slap it and grab it. And I'm gonna be honest, I consented to this because I've never had an IRL friend before, and I didn't know what kind of touching was and wasn't okay. And, I also consented to her, touching my and, I guess, this stuff is fine because I consented to it, but there's stuff that she did that I didn't consent to. She would often poke me, in the ass or, on my crotch and, make jokes about me, and, I told her not to do this, and I said no multiple times, and I would even, scream if she did it, but she did it even as recently as, a few nights ago, I think. I still have my doubts about, my feelings about this because, with that thing, I didn't continue to say no, and I confronted Synni about this, and she said she thought I was joking when I said no, which I have a recording of, but I'll show the recording later.
Yes, I did make a lot of comments about Jack's ass and how big and squishy it is. I've smacked him on the ass, I've grabbed his ass, I've even used his ass as a pillow. I've played with his ass, and I've always asked if what I was doing bothered him or made him uncomfortable, and he's always said he doesn't mind. He doesn't care. It's fine. He says he didn't consent to me poking him in the ass or in the crotch, which I have to say, I don't know if he ever made it explicitly clear that he didn't like me poking him in the ass, and I do genuinely feel bad if I was making him uncomfortable by doing that. I say in the recording he took of me, by the way, I had no idea I was being recorded, I tell him I thought he was joking when he told me no. There's a lot of things that I do to Jack expecting a specific reaction because he makes funny noises. I would often grab his face and squish it in my hand and he'd make a mrrr sound, and I thought it was funny. I would hold his nose closed, and when I let go he would inhale really hard. Funny. I'd pinch his double chin and he'd say, "My gizzard." Funny. When I poked him in the ass, he would scream. Not a guttural scream, like it would be easy for me to assume that he was scared or upset. It was like a silly scream, like, "Ah! Ah!" Last time I remember doing this, though, he didn't react at all. He was playing with Squirp on the cat tree, and I poked him in the ass, and he didn't react. He just kept playing with the cat. He didn't even flinch. How am I supposed to know that you don't like what I'm doing if you don't tell me? If you told me before, then it wasn't really clear. You gotta be explicit with me. I'm autistic. I'm stupid. He says I poked him in the crotch, and I have 2 memories of doing this, and both times I immediately apologized afterwards. I poked him in the gents on accident because I was trying to poke him in the ass and I went too low, and he told me, "You poked me in the," and I apologized profusely and stressed that I didn't mean to. I poked him in the pubic area once and then immediately asked if it was okay to do that, and to be frank, I don't actually have a clear memory of his response. I don't know why. This isn't something I do regularly. That's why I had to question if I actually did that in the recording.
She would often poke me, like, in the ass or, like, on my crotch and, like, make jokes about fingering me and, like...
Sometimes when I poked him in the ass, I would say, "Star finger," because I thought it was funny. He brings up the fact that I asked him to sit on my face. I do understand if he's upset that I would ask him to do this. It's a situation in nature, and he declined for that reason. If Jack doesn't like that I was willing to ask him to do that, he has every right to be upset. What he doesn't have the right to do is revoke his consent of me touching him and claiming I sexually assaulted him just because he doesn't like me anymore. That's shit.
And I'm gonna be honest, I consented to this because I've never had an IRL friend before and I didn't know what kind of touching was and wasn't okay.
My brother in Christ, you are an adult. You choose what touching is okay. There is no rule book.
I thought he was joking when he said no, and the vague allusion to Jack's claim that he had screamed for her to stop when she'd touched him like this is the most concerning part of this section. She has a brief mention of the screaming, but would appear to have taken those screams as a joke. Whether she's avoiding the mention of more distress screams, or whether this was a communication issue is not for me to theorize on. Again, I was not there. I can only provide a cohesive take on a claim that I have evidence for. But I take concern at her mention, vague inclusion, and / or lack thereof of the aforementioned comments. Her sudden lack of recollection to this response where he claimed that he wasn't okay with some of this is also very convenient for her. Either side could be telling the truth here, and when it comes to a claim like this, there is the possibility that this was a greater communication error over a malicious act, so I'll leave this open-ended.
I have not been mooching off of Synni. I have actually, I've helped pay rent every month. I've helped pay for groceries. I've given Synni money for gas. I've paid for a lot of her things. I have not been mooching off of her, but...
I was not mooching off of Synni is a wild statement considering how much I was doing for you. We were living together for almost half a year, and I would say half that time you were staying in my apartment rent-free. The first few months we lived together, I was paying the rent in full, and I had to plead with you to pay 1/3 of the rent. Not half rent. I offered Jack pay 1/3 of the rent because his benefits paid him half of what I get paid. I had to drag it out of you, and you whined about it. You haven't paid rent for the past few months because your benefits were revoked. I cook, I clean the apartment, I do the dishes, I do the laundry. You sometimes clean the litter boxes when I ask you to. I drive you to your appointments. I pay for your medicine. I take you on car rides when you're sad. I buy you ice cream every week. I have to fucking bribe you with ice cream so you'll get out of bed and go to Social Security to try to get your benefits back. I was taking care of you, and it's fucking wild that you have the audacity to paint me as a monster and call me a pedophile when you should know that isn't true. I've always been by your side, as long as you were willing to get better. I stood by your side when the internet still hated you and thought you were a... I stood by you when you drew over the memorial. I am heartbroken that you threw away our friendship as soon as it wasn't easy being my friend, when I have done everything for you. You are a fucking coward. Not only would I call you a moocher, you're also a thief. You stole my jewelry, the fake nails that our mutual bought for me, and you took our fucking cat when you don't have stable housing. I genuinely believe you should bring Squirt back to my apartment because you cannot take care of her on your own. You can't even take care of yourself. This isn't me being malicious and trying to take your cat from you because I'm upset with you. I don't think you can take care of her. And if you try to make the argument that I forgot to feed her a couple times when I left for work, I knew that they would be okay if I didn't feed them as soon as I got up because you were always home. I have to work all day while you sit on your ass at home and draw. You also begged me to get these cats. You should be willing to contribute to taking care of them by feeding them and cleaning up after them. Especially when you're always home.
More if this is a domestic dispute that I'd rather not waste my time on, but to me, I think it's worth touching on these moments in her video because it shows how insane her priorities are with all of this. Having a shitty housemate can suck. Yeah. Living with friends is not easy. I'd know. It can be miserable having to cover for another person. Yeah. But for God's sake, this situation is about your admission to sending and receiving from a 14-year-old. It is absurd to be pointing the finger at anybody else here. I can appreciate that it's probably been really hard being turned away by a friend that you've made the effort for and stood by. But you made a video where you, in your own words, said you a minor. That's not being a difficult friend. It's impossible to look past, especially if you've been victimized in a similar way by other people in the past. Taking a pet from you is cruel, and I can appreciate that. I don't agree with their decision to do so if this is your animal and not a shed pet. Equally though, I'm not empathetic towards you because of it. You have not earned my sympathy.
Jack brings up my obsession with Boy. Let's talk about Boy. Something that keeps getting brought up is the fact that I'm simping over a minor's character. Okay, who fucking cares? The character is an adult. That is what matters. Sock is uncomfortable with how I'm using Boy. They blocked me. I don't care. I think I've made it very clear in the leaked DMs that I think Sock is way too sensitive when it comes to their characters. I think it's insanely stupid to post your characters online and then get upset when people get invested in your work. Not allowing people to ship your characters, ship themselves with your characters, make headcanons for your characters, kin your characters when you're posting them to the internet where everyone can see them is ridiculous. Just try and control the internet. You will fail. I am tired of acting like she has any say over my creative freedom and self-expression. She blocked me so she doesn't have to see my art. That should be good enough for her. The only people hurting her are the ones who go out of their way to show her the things that I've drawn. Watch me continue to have beef with Sock.clip.
Quote, who cares about how you've taken a minor's character, created fun of this character against their wishes, and continue to do so despite them asking you not to? Most people. Going against someone's consent to use their character for essay art is, well, fill in the blank with any number of awful words. It's 100% something people can criticize your character for and judge you over. I don't care if you think they are too sensitive over the fact they didn't want you to make essay comics of their character. Create your own character then. That's a fair boundary for them to set. And while nobody can stop you from doing it, a regular person will look at you different for having a total lack of respect for her boundaries. Why is it your choice how she's allowed to feel about this? Or how people are allowed to view this? Clearly your moral compass is completely out of whack if you think this was a good argument to make here.
He had an issue with me talking about sex AIs in my 13+ server. This is actually something I believe was a problem. I shouldn't have talked about it in my server. That was irresponsible and cringe. And you know what? Someone did actually DM me saying that I shouldn't have been doing that, and I agreed with them and didn't do it again. I believe I contemplated making like a public apology within the server, but my mods told me not to. I don't have any evidence of this because the server was deleted and I didn't know how to export the files. So take what I say with a poke in the ass. Boop.
It was not cringe to have asked your 13+ Discord server for NSFW AI recommendations. It was disgusting. You're an adult who should not have a connection with an audience of children where you think it acceptable to ask them for anything NSFW related. Get a grip on how to handle your platform. Take what I say with a poke in the ass. You're an asshole.
Jack says it would have been better if my server was 16+, and I will be honest, I don't know about that. You'd prefer if I was talking to 16-year-olds about which bots I can fuck? See, Jack is under the impression that 16+ is an appropriate label for sexual content, and I was under that impression too for the longest time. I think it's because the animation art community often use 16+ on sexual or suggestive content, and that's the community we grew up with. Realistically, it's still weird. Why even take a chance with the age stuff, honestly? If I ever make another Discord server, it is going to be 18 plus with precautions to prove your age. This shit is annoying.
Let me get this straight. The person who asked a 14-year-old for porn is telling someone else that they have a bad handle on what age is acceptable to ask people for. Okay, I agree that Jack's 16 plus suggestion was also bad. I said as much when I confronted him over this, and he said, I completely understand what you mean with the 16 plus to 18 plus issue, even if I've been really horrible at determining what is appropriate for what audience myself. And I will never feel comfortable with the idea of an adult setting their arbitrary age for people to view their suggestive content at 16 plus. But Synni, you are not the person to be making this argument. I mean, after all, you're the one who thought it was okay to ask your 13 plus server. You're worse.
Jack was upset that I was an AI bot while he was laying on top of me. I wasn't like myself or anything, but to be honest, I can see why this would upset him. I'm not gonna act like Jack was being irrational by getting upset that I was an AI bot when he's trying to spend time with me.
See, it is that easy to actually take a criticism on the chin. Where you're picking your battles and choosing to morally grandstand in this video is hilarious though. Going from, and I'm using the smart language technique here called, changing the entirety of how you phrase what you said to emphasize my point. It's okay for me to draw essay comics of this artist's character, and I can't believe they might still get mad at me after this video, to, yeah, I probably shouldn't have been sending messages to an NSFW chatbot while hanging out with my friend. It's so strange. Since I already know you're watching this video, Synni, I have a question for you. Where do both of these acts lie on your moral compass? According to you, making a minor uncomfortable by drawing essay comics of their character is fine, but messaging an NSFW chatbot around a friend isn't? To me, both of these are weird, and both are a violation of that person's boundaries. It's easy to be consistent on topics like these, but because of how fucked you are in this situation, you're drawing all these bizarre lines where you are and aren't okay with shit because you know if you drew the line straight, the entirety of this video would be an admission that you fucked up.
I don't feel safe here anymore after learning what happened.
I completely understand if my actions have made Jack trust me less, and he doesn't want to support me. I'm annoyed because I did that for him, but I'm not entitled to his presence in my life. I think it's odd that Jack insists that he's in danger to some extent by staying with me. Do you think I'm gonna get you? Do you think I'm gonna hurt you? Genuinely, how are you in danger by staying with me? I've established how what I did wasn't assault. You don't get to revoke your consent.
Wait, earlier in this video you called his GoFundMe a scam, and acted like you couldn't understand why he wouldn't want to be in the same house as you. But now, all of a sudden, you can understand why he wouldn't be able to trust you and why he wouldn't want to support you? Then surely it shouldn't be hard at all for you to understand why he wouldn't want to continue living with you. Someone you can't support, and critically, someone you can't trust, is not someone you'd want to share a living space with.
Literally nothing he's done has been in the interest of protecting Enno. And a lot of his behavior has actually put Enno in danger. Not only does he and Sophia not censor Enno's name in their videos like I was trying to do in mine, Jack included Enno in a section in his video, and he leaves in her Discord tag so any random motherfucker can contact them. Anyone! If that's not bad enough, the document that shares our DMs, the one that Jack made Enno make for his video to come out, it doesn't just expose my kinks and fetishes, you're exposing that Enno likes this shit too, because Enno can be seen responding positively to a lot of this. People can use this information to prey on Enno. Enno would have been kept safer if this entire situation was handled privately. Jack! Not only that, but Jack has caused people to attempt to contact Enno's parents, which freaked them the fuck out. None of this is being handled responsibly. Nothing he's doing is helping the supposed victim. I don't think he even really cares, if I'm being completely honest.
Okay, it's good to know that she watched my video. Hi Synni! This is an argument that I haven't seen anyone else make, and was something I said to Jack in DMs, which led to him removing the victim's Discord from the video in the hours following our conversation. She's repeated this point in here alongside the previous, which I said to Jack, and now presumes she took from my video too, because she knows that Jack admitted fault on them, and wants to bolster her smearing of Jack in this video with arguments that he can't refute down the line. People can use this information to prey on the victim. What, like you did? The victim would have been kept safer? Motherfucker, you're the one who sent them porn! I'm using that genius writing technique again. Guys, Jack doesn't care like I do about the victim I'm being called out for taking advantage of. And that's where I'm gonna leave her video. I don't have much to add to what I didn't include here, and considering she removed this video, it would probably be redundant anyway. After deleting this video, she made a community post that read, I took down my response video, I don't think it's appropriate to leave it up, I don't think I was right to make that video. It was way too soon and I was still processing what I had done, and I was extremely emotional about the situation, so I put my energy into the wrong things. I was too focused on how hurt I was, and I took attention away from the people I had hurt. My priorities have been in the wrong place, and I recognize that. I was too focused on trying to fix everything instead of working on myself and my mental state. I was in no place to make a response video so soon. The people saying I don't care about what I've done or the people I've hurt are wrong. I simply hadn't processed the situation until recently. I realize now that my actions have traumatized people, and I have no way of knowing how my actions will impact them in the future. I genuinely didn't think that what I was doing was hurting them, and the fact I didn't recognize that is definitely a problem I plan on fixing. I have a huge problem with oversharing extremely obscene and grotesque content with people I barely know, one of which being the victim, and that needs to change. I'm in therapy, I'm considering entering a rehabilitation program. I do genuinely want to make sure I don't hurt anyone else with my degeneracy. I don't want to make any more victims. This isn't me trying to come back to my platform, I just want to make my intentions known. I took down my video because it was awful. I'm done blaming other people for where I am. I'm getting help behind the scenes. I think it's good that she removed the video. I think a lot of what she said here is her repeating what she did say previously in her apology video, and it's hard to take her serious the second time she says an apology like this. I still think this is lackluster, but I do think it hopefully shows that she's not planning to return to her platform or continue to make defenses for herself. No one else should either. And I think therapy is a good start. It's always the best place to begin if you're trying to improve as a person. I'm done blaming other people for where I am. I hope so. I hope that this is the last time Synni points the fingers at other people in hopes they stop looking at her. But that's where I'll call this video. As said at the start, I have a follow-up on this discussing Just a Robot's involvement with this situation that placed him in other creators' videos labeling him a spineless YouTuber who throw away anything resembling credibility for a chance at some pussy. Alongside that, I'd also like to talk about the reason why I cut Jar off in the first place 2 years ago. His history of inappropriate comments with those around him, and him chasing me down the halls of VidCon. That's a slight exaggeration, but it was pretty creepy. Alongside what I discovered today while watching another video, that he spotted me and my friend The Right Opinion at a CVS pharmacy and just watched and listened to us, I guess. Genuinely, I think for the next few months, I'm going to be looking over my shoulder worried that someone's watching me. But yeah, I'll leave that there. Thanks for watching. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and check out my other social media down in the description. I'm going to resume my session of Animal Crossing New Leaf, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
Just to see you come back home. But each step that you took towards her, well, you took each one alone. And every time you said, my God, how is it up there on that phone? Well, I've been waiting on your feet just to hear you say that I'm not needed. I said I was an honest man. You said I wasn't at all, but I wanted it. Well, I think you're just afraid of the fall, but you won't be there at all. No, you won't be there at all. My God, I hope you're falling apart. My God, I hope you're falling and you will. My God, I hope you're falling apart. It's gonna be the start of what you are. Well, I remember when you said that you hate everything I do. You didn't have a reason then, wish I'd given one to you, and then